that the okapi are related to the zebra, or maybe even a type of antelope, but they are the only living relatives of the giraffes. Part of the reason why they're related is because of their tongues. Both okapi and giraffe do have long prehensile tongues. That means they can use them as an extension of their face to grab onto any leaves or branches that are just out of their reach and help pull them down towards their mouths. Now, as we go through the reserve, I'm going to try to point out some of the more endangered species to you. I'll tell you a little bit about why they're endangered and what we're doing to help them out, what you guys can do as well. There's actually one coming up right up here on our left-hand side. He's hanging out in the shade over here by the rocks. This is a black rhino. We're going to make a quick stop. You definitely want to try to snap a few pictures of him.
Oh, he's cute. Oh.
Now, we are very fortunate to even glimpse a black rhino because unfortunately there are only 5,000 of them left in the entire world, and that's mostly due to poaching.
Where are you?
Now, poachers tend to go after the rhino's horns. They are made out of keratin, which is the same substance that makes up our own fingernails and our hair as well, so they're not really valuable. But part of the reason why they do fetch such a high price on the black market is because there are some cultures out there that do believe the rhino's horns hold some sort of medicinal power, though that has not been proven by modern medicine. It is pretty much the equivalent of chewing on your own fingernails. Now, on our left-hand side, the bright orange antelope are called bongos. They're actually some of my favorite animals here on the reserve because they have a great name and an even better nickname. The bongos are called the ghosts of the forest due to their normally shy and reclusive natures. The deer-like antelope on the hill are called greater kudu. Only males have horns. Looks like those are females. Now, eventually the road should be taking us down to the savannah. Before we get there, we are going to try one more watering hole just around the corner. This is called the Safi River. Now, we usually do have some pretty good luck around watering holes. A lot of animal species like to hang out around them so they can stay hydrated and cool themselves off. And I think we are in luck today. Look up on our right-hand side. There's a Nile hippopotamus taking a snooze up here.
Oh my God!
And some pretty brave birds out there as well.
Oh, he's so cute. Hi, buddy.
Let's go a little bit further upriver, see if there's any more hippos hanging around. Now, also out to our left-hand side on this island, you're going to see the big white birds. Those are pink-backed pelicans. During mating season, it does appear as if the feathers on their backs turn pink, but it's not their feathers. It's actually the skin underneath them that will. Their feathers just get this kind of pinkish tinge because of it. Now, you want to keep an eye out for any large bubbles down below, maybe some ripples too. That's a good sign there might be a hippo or two down there. It is usually all about timing with the hippos though. They can hold their breath for about 8 minutes. And rather than swim, they do prefer to walk along the bottom of the riverbed. So you got to try to catch them sometimes just as they're coming up for air. But I think you're going to want to keep your eyes down to the left. It looks like there are some Nile crocodiles down below. Just make sure you're staying fully seated for me though, friends. Thank you.
Crikey!
Now, if y'all ever see any crocs, please stay seated though. Thank you. If you guys ever see any crocs with their mouths open, they are trying to cool themselves off. Though I would be very careful. Their jaws can snap shut with about 2,000 pounds per square inch of pressure. And that is hard enough to crush bone. So we're getting out of here.
Oh, awesome.
Now it looks like the trees are starting to thin. We should be heading on down to the savannah here pretty shortly. This is going to be more of the grassland area of the reserve, home to lots of different animal species and some pretty gnarly plants as well. Look up here on our right-hand side. This really big tree is called a baobab tree. They're also known as upside-down trees because it does appear as if their roots are in the air. Now, these trees will go leafless for about 9 months out of the year. Usually right around the rainy season is when they're going to get their leaves. That way they can soak up as much water as possible, and they can store thousands of gallons of water in their trunks. And by doing this, baobab trees can live to be about 3,000 to 4,000 years old sometimes. So as we go along the savannah, you might see a few more of those trees, some even larger than that one. That means they're a little older as well. But I think there's already some animals right down here at the bottom of the hill. You're going to see these cattle with the really big horns coming up to our right. These are called Ankole cattle. They're also sometimes known as Watusi cattle, after the Watusi tribe, which originally domesticated them. Just we rub ahead close to the road too. Now their horns can get pretty large. They can be about 3 to 4 feet in length, and between the tips on some, 6 feet across. So up close they're massive. We're going to come around so you can get a closer look at some out there. Now you would think their horns would be kind of heavy, but they are somewhat hollow on the inside, and they will act as a cooling system. So blood will circulate up through the tops of the Ankole cattle's horns. It'll cool off and then flow back down into their bodies. And that does keep them nice and cool in the hot African sun out here. Here comes another one up to our left-hand side. And also out to our left, sitting back in the shade of the trees and the hill, you're going to see those large tan dark antelope out there. Those are sable antelope. And they might look familiar to you. They are the emblems of our reserve. The darker the coat on the sable, the more dominant and mature they tend to be. So if you see a really dark one, that's probably the dominant male of that herd. I just ask guys, we don't make noises at the animals, please. Thank you. Looks like there's a few more animals hanging out along the grassland out there. So we're going to come around and try to get another look at them. If you look through my windshield though, soon to be our left-hand side, those gray animals out there are white-bearded wildebeest. They're kind of spread out, but it does seem like that's a little bit of a smaller herd. They do have one of the largest animal migrations in the world. About 1.5 million of them will migrate across the savannah each and every year. Here comes another Ankole cattle on our left-hand side too. Now she's too close, I won't be able to stop. I'm going to go real slow around her though. Just keep everything in the truck for me, please. It's a great chance to take some pictures though. Make sure everything's in the truck though. Thank you guys. But here come those wildebeest to our right. Now the wildebeest are named after an Afrikaans word, which is a language that's a mix of Dutch and Swahili. That means wild beast, because up close they look a little scary. You may have also heard of an animal called gnu before, spelled G-N-U. The G is silent. Gnu and wildebeest, they're the same animal. The gnu comes from the low grunting noise that wildebeest will make. And then if you look over to our left-hand side, looks like there's some giraffes up ahead too. We're going to talk about them in a second. Real fast though on our right, moving through the tall grass, you're going to see that large tan antelope. That's a Patterson's eland. If you look up the hill from her, there's 2 baby Patterson's eland, and way back in the tall grass, a male as well. You can tell he's a male just because of his size. He's really, really large. Back over your right-hand shoulder there. The males can be 6 feet tall just at the shoulder and weigh 2,000 pounds. So they're the largest antelopes in the world.
Oh, look at the baby giraffe.
Now it looks like these are all Maasai giraffes. You can tell the difference between species by looking at their coat patterns. Maasai giraffe do tend to have a little bit more of a messier or erratic coat pattern than most other giraffe species. Let's get a good look at these two here on our left-hand side.
Yes!
Let me get some of the sun out of y'all's eyes. There we go.
I got it.
How cool, guys. Look how close.
Now you might want to watch the one that's eating. Watch his mouth. You might get to see his tongue poke out every once in a while. I mentioned their tongues before when we were looking at their cousins, the okapi. Remember, they are prehensile. They're also about 18 to 20 inches long and dark purple. And that's to help keep them from getting sunburned. Because giraffes do spend most of their day eating. Now it looks like there are a couple of pushed over trees here on our right-hand side. And that's a good sign that we might be entering into elephant territory. Yeah. Now elephants do often push over trees, and that's a good thing too. Makes way for new grasses to grow. Helps to feed a lot of the animals that are considered to be grazers out here. So that's going to be animals like the wildebeest and the Patterson's eland that we saw back there. Let's take a quick peek behind the bushes, see if there's any hanging out around here. Now we are of course looking for African elephants, and you can tell that not just because we're in Africa, but also by looking at the shape of their ears. That is how you tell the difference between species of elephants, is by looking at their ears. African elephants in particular are very easy to tell apart Their ears are in the shape of the continent of Africa. Nothing just yet. We'll come around here though. Now, elephants do have a very human-like lifespan, but they are mostly matriarchal. So at about 14 years old, the males are going to leave their herds, and they tend to usually go off on their own. Every once in a while, though, they do sometimes form bachelor herds. And while it's normally just a couple of males all together, sometimes the herds can get pretty large. I believe the highest bachelor herd ever recorded was 144 male elephants. Yeah, so we're going to see if we can find some, maybe not as many as that. But we'll follow this little river here to our left, maybe hit a few more watering holes along the way as well. It certainly does seem like we're on the right track, though. I can see some tusk marks and some elephant tracks down on the red clay here. And way out to our left-hand side, there's some elephants. We're going to come around trying to get a closer look at them. They're a little far right now. Elephants will often eat red clay like that for the minerals and nutrients found in the soil. It's just like one of us taking vitamins during the day. And you may notice too, some of these elephants are going to be flapping their ears. That is to help cool themselves off. Elephants have blood vessels located right at the base of their ears. So if they flap their ears, it's going to cool off those blood vessels and in turn cool off the rest of their bodies too. Here we go. There's a few out right between the rocks on our left. There's some more down by that watering hole. And look down by the baobab tree on our left, a little ahead of us. There's a baby elephant out there too. I'm going to keep an eye on her. We'll see where she goes. Let's get a good look at these adult stuff. We'll try to get a good look at that baby as well.
See it?
Now, our research team has been keeping a close eye on that baby for quite some time. So we know a few things about her. For instance, we know she's a girl. We also know she's just over a year old. And that means she weighs relatively 1,000 pounds right now. Now, baby elephants are firstborn. They already average about 300 pounds, which makes sense. They do have a gestation period of about 22 months, so they are pregnant for just under 2 years.
2 years.
All right, hopefully she hasn't gone too far. There's another adult elephant out here too. I can see him moving his ears a little bit. And yeah. Just make sure we're staying seated though. Thank you, friends.
Where's the baby elephant?
We'll come around here, probably get another look at that baby too. Now also coming out to our left-hand side, the bright pink birds are greater flamingos. Lightest colored of all the flamingo species. Fun fact, a group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. Now one thing that is really, really cool that we've actually learned about elephants is that out of all the animals they could have chosen to be scared of, they picked bumblebees. Yeah, it's true, elephants are terrified of bees, and it's actually a really good thing we know this about them, because there were some farmers out here in Africa that were starting to put their crops into elephant territory. So the elephants were unintentionally trampling over those crops, and the farmers started using some pretty not good methods, we'll say, to keep them away. Well, we wanted to find a better solution, something that was a little more peaceful, so we did some research and discovered elephants would avoid the buzzing noise the bees make. So we used that to our advantage. We built fences around the farmer's land, put beehives along the fences, and it worked. The elephants stayed away, and the farmers got a new crop to harvest and sell, which was the bees' honey. Real quick on our left, those brown antelope are bantebak. If the sun hits them at just the right angle, they're going to turn a somewhat purplish color. So keep an eye out for that as we come around here. But yeah, we really got to try to make up for it where we can with the elephants, because they are an endangered species. And it is, unfortunately, mostly due to poaching. In fact, every day, 96 elephants are lost to poaching. Yeah, every day, 96 of them. So whenever we do find those peaceful solutions between human and animal conflicts, so like the farmers and the elephants and the bees, we do our best to take advantage of that so we can help to boost their numbers a little bit. And of course, we do try to stop the poachers as well, but they have evolved with the times. They use a lot of high-tech technology, so they're a little harder to keep track of. You may have seen, though, Just before we reached the Bontebok, as we came around the corner from the flamingos, there was a small warden's post out there, and it seemed like the warden had managed to confiscate some of the ivory tusks that the poachers took from the elephants, and that's always a good thing as well. Helps keep those out of circulation on the black market. Now on our left-hand side, we're going around this outcropping of rocks. We call this a kopie. And a lot of predators like to use kopies like this as a kind of lookout post so they can scan the savanna for any prey that might be around. Now most predators that live on the savanna are typically nocturnal. That means they like to hunt predominantly at night. They'll sleep for most of the day. There are a few exceptions to that rule though. Some of them are diurnal. That means they're going to hunt mostly during the day and sleep at night. So even if there's not something awake on the kopie, there might be something asleep on it. So let's come around the other side, see if we can get a good look. Oh, real fast on our right-hand side though. These antelope are called waterbuck. If you guys smell anything weird, it's probably them.
Yeah.
They actually secrete this kind of smelly, oily liquid onto their coats. We're pretty sure it's to keep their coats from getting too wet. They do tend to hang out around water sources a little more than your average antelope. Now as we come around the kopie here, you want to keep an eye on the shady parts, especially in between the really, really big rocks up ahead. That's most likely the coolest parts out there, away from the sun. So there might be something sleeping up there. Let's see if we can get a closer look. Oh, but right out in the open, look on our left-hand side. Oh my God. There's a male lion, and I'm going to pull forward a little bit more. There's a lioness up there too. If you can't see that lioness just yet, I'll pull forward here in a second for you. Real slow. Now it is really, really cool to see lions out in the open like this. Now they are usually inactive, so they will rest for about 16 to 20 hours during the day. Typically nighttime is when they're most active. Now at night, it will be the lionesses that go out and hunt, while the male lions will hang back and they're going to protect the pride. Ooh, looks like down at the bottom of the hill there's some ostriches down there waiting for us. Oh, wow. And yeah, across the clearing from us, look past the trees, all around the other opposite edge out there, you're going to see a couple of long fuzzy rocks with tusks. Those are warthogs. Warthogs are the largest burrowing mammal. They'll actually reuse other animal burrows to hide from predators that might be around. Now we're coming up on some ostrich. I'm going to go real slow past. Just do me a favor. Keep everything in the truck for me, please. Now these are female ostrich. You can tell because their feathers are gray, not black. Only male ostrich have black feathers. You may want to look over to our right-hand side. Down in the grass, there is a small nest of ostrich eggs down below too. Now those eggs are usually pretty discernible just because of their size. Each one weighs the equivalent of 24 chicken eggs. And if a fully grown human man were to stand on top of just one of them, it would not crack. That's how thick and strong those things can be. Looks like though we are coming around the corner and into an area we like to call the Magadi Glen. Now from here, we'll be going back to the village of Harambe. But this area was made possible because of our reserve's partnership with Disney's Wildlife Conservation Fund. And I can already see some animals up here too. Look on our right-hand side first. We'll start with these guys. The big white birds with yellow bills are called yellow-billed stork. I like to mention them because they're carnivorous.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they'll eat just about anything, and that includes other smaller birds. To our left-hand side, this antelope is called a scimitar horned oryx. They are named after the Middle Eastern sword, the scimitar, because of the similar way that their horns curve. And we're actually really lucky we got to see an oryx today. Not just because they normally live in a very desert, arid type of climate, but they are considered to be extinct in the wild. Pretty much the only place you can find oryx on reserves like ours. Now that is in part due to poaching. It is also due to a much larger problem that's affecting not just the animals already endangered, but we were even lucky to see animals like the giraffes or the lions. In fact, if they live out there on the savanna, they're all threatened due to habitat loss. And it's a huge problem out here in Africa. A little more specifically, there is mining going on for an ore called coltan, which is used in a lot of electronic devices. So the way you guys can help out with that is if you ever go to upgrade to anything new, please consider recycling or donating your old electronics. Not only could it possibly help out a fellow human being, but it may also help out some of the animals that we've seen out here too. The other way you guys can help is you can donate to Disney's Wildlife Conservation Fund. In the last year, it raised $60 million in grants toward animal conservation. So they do a lot of really good things. You might